The title of this presentation is Evaluating the Relationship Between Academic Decisions and Risk, a Study of University Business Students. I'm Benjamin Boozer from Jacksonville State University in Jacksonville, Alabama. We're wondering how that individuals make financial decisions, and we've developed a thesis that looks at two different areas. Do students apply risk assessment when making decisions, and does risk aversion extend to academic decisions? We surveyed 671 students between fall of 2019 and fall of 2020 in making this determination. The second part of the thesis considers, is there a difference between financial and academic decision making? So there's really two types of decision making that we're considering: financial decisions and academic decisions. And do students use a risk aversion criteria, and to what extent does that extend into academic decisions? We found that there's ample literature that looks at the risk return profile for risk aversion. And that literature looks at consumption and income, skill sets and entrepreneurship, gender differences, individual decisions with other people's money, peer influence. And there are human factors also in the literature that talk about bias and personality traits and the environment. All of these things contribute to how individuals make decisions. Now, in the student survey, the financial risk, what we did on this is we were gauging a student's perception of risk, and we asked the question, would you rather receive $500 or flip a coin to receive either either $0 or $1,000? And the other part was, would you rather pay $500 or flip a coin and pay either $0 or pay $1,000? So on the first part of receiving money, 72% said that they would rather receive the $500, and only 28% said that they would prefer to flip a coin with the chance of receiving $1,000. So they were wanting to receive the certain amount of 500. On the second part, if you're paying 500 or paying either 0 or 1,000, the results were different. On this part, you'll notice that 52.8% said that they would rather pay 500, but 47.2% said that they would rather take the chance of paying $0, even though they may have to pay $1,000. So students are less willing to take financial risk when paying money, but notice that anything over 50% is acceptance. So in both cases, it was more than 50%, whether it's 72% that said they'd rather receive 500 or 52.8% that said that they would rather pay 500. There is a difference there because they're much less willing to take financial risk when paying money based on these results. Now, for academic risk, what we did is we looked at classes and the difficulty of classes and compared it to grade point averages. So the question that we asked, would you rather take a less challenging class and earn a higher grade, or take a more rigorous class and potentially earn a lower grade but gain the potential to expand knowledge and employability? So 41% said that they would rather earn the higher grade, while 41.4% said they'd rather earn a higher grade, while 58.6% said that they would prefer to expand their knowledge and employability. So what this means is that their students are willing to take risk. They're saying, okay, the longer term payoff, we're wanting to gain the knowledge and gain the employability, but it's definitely not a certain thing that you will have a good career based on that. It's just, how can you use that? So what this result means is, yes, they're willing to take more risk to achieve a longer term result as opposed to a shorter term result, which would be, a higher grade. Now, risk versus return. When we're looking at risk and return, we look at risk aversion, which means that you don't like risk, but you're willing to take on more risk if you can achieve a higher benefit, some type of return. So, and we use a thing here with this assessment called sure thing, in terms of sure thing financially or sure thing academically. And this goes back to the idea of paying or receiving money. Because they're saying by looking at the sure thing, you're looking at the willingness to receive a specific amount of money now, the $500, rather than the opportunity to receive more later with the risk of receiving nothing. And so when you look at that part, if you can also say, well, the pay in terms of paying money, willingness to pay a specific amount of money now rather than paying nothing later, with a risk of having to pay more later. Okay, so that's a sure thing when it comes to financially. And then sure thing academically would be willingness to take easier course with the probability of receiving a higher grade, but without the knowledge. So the sure thing academically is saying, well, yes, we want to make a higher grade regardless of the knowledge. So that sure thing would be a higher grade, a higher GPA, but it doesn't provide, assuming that you're taking easier classes, not gaining the knowledge that you need for long-term career opportunities, then that sure thing is not taking the risk that could produce a higher return. Now, financial decisions by category, we found from the research that for gender, that females prefer more certainty when making decisions. They're less willing to take risk in general, the female gender. Major, there was no significant differences with risk decisions based upon the major that was identified. ACT scores, those with higher ACT are more willing to take risk when paying money. Those with lower ACT are more willing to take risk when receiving money. Now, these are the survey results, and basically these results are looking at what's based on a Likert scale of very unimportant, unimportant, neutral, important, and very important. Most of the categories, when we're looking at selecting an instructor, receiving a failing grade, selecting a major, students indicated with various levels of responses that these are very important categories to them. Probably the one that had the highest percentage of very important would be the potential loss of academic scholarship in terms of receiving a failing grade. Now, the summary of the results. What does all of this mean? Well, students use risk assessment in making decisions, but the way students approach risk is not consistent between financial and academic decisions. So we found that students are more willing to take financial risk to pay money versus receiving money. So they're more willing to take the risk of paying and saying, okay, instead of paying a certain amount, I'll take the risk that maybe I don't have to pay anything. But with receiving money, they say, no, I would rather get the sure thing. I would rather receive a certain amount than taking a risk of receiving less, even though I may receive more. So that was the finding on the part of financial risk, where we're looking at the students are basically saying that they're wanting to minimize cost versus maximizing return. Now, if we look at this in terms of academics, overall, based on the percentage of students are more willing to take risk academically for longer term reward, and that is greater knowledge, higher employability than the short-term grade. So what they're saying with these responses, that they're looking at maximizing the return only, regardless of the cost. So they're saying that they're not as concerned about the short-term cost of maybe making a lower grade, a lower GPA, if they can achieve and build a foundation for a longer term perspective of more knowledge, higher employability, greater career opportunity. So that's different than what we found with the financial risk, where they're looking at just minimizing costs versus maximizing return. Now, future research in this area, when we look at these variables that we considered, there's things here I think that we can extend this research. We can look at these other academic decisions, based on gender, major, ACT, over a longer period of time, perhaps including other control variables, how they interact between each other, perhaps in some type of multiple variable analysis. There's things that I think that this could go outside of the business discipline and look at students and how they make decisions, because business students are conditioned to look at risk. Other students may not really look at risk in the same way. So it'd be interesting to look at outside of the business discipline. And then variables could be introduced that specify career benefit from an academic curriculum. Instead of just saying, how would you improve your employability, your knowledge, your skills that you could use? It may be something where you're looking at some specific career or some pecuniary aspect of the career, in terms of money, or it could look at other things that you could do within a career, how you could benefit yourself. So these are some specific career benefits that possibly could be introduced and could be tested. I appreciate the opportunity to provide this presentation. I hope it's been beneficial to you. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact me at this information below. Thank you very much.